It's awesome. It's a really good feeling. Great feeling for the guys in the locker room. Obviously a win's way better than a loss, so we're ready to build on it.
That was Texans quarterback Davis Mills yesterday after he got his first win as a starting quarterback in the NFL as the Texans took care of the Jacksonville Jaguars for their third win of the season. Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to the Fox 26 Sports Stream. We do it every night just after 7 o'clock right here on a vast array of digital avenues. You can find us on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel. You just search Fox 26 Houston on YouTube, or you can find us on Twitter and our homepage at fox26houston.com. As always, I'm Sal Manine, sports producer here at Fox 26. We'll get into the Texans. We'll check in on the Rockets, who are just getting underway up in Chicago as they look to continue their hot play as of recent weeks. And then we'll even talk a little baseball and some high school football as the season came to an end this past weekend up in Arlington, and a couple of Houston area teams brought some hardware back home. So we'll get into all that as things roll along here over the next 20, 30 minutes or so. But we got to start with the Texans, who, depending on how you look at it, got the job done or got the job done, and that actually doesn't help them get the job done in the long run. What I mean by that, the Lions came out of nowhere yesterday and beat the Arizona Cardinals. So that meant whoever lost yesterday's game in Jacksonville would fall to the bottom of the NFL standings and thus have the number one pick in the greatest chances of hanging on to that number one pick with only a few weeks left in the regular season. The Texans, though, scored on their opening drive, and much like we saw in their first game against the Jaguars way back in week one, finally put it all together and played a fairly complete game throughout an entire afternoon of rain and mugginess and not the most ideal conditions, yet special teams was working. The Texans had a kick return for a touchdown. Tremont Smith, who just signed an extension a couple weeks ago, with the team, the first kick return TD for the Texans since Jacoby Jones back in 2009. Kaimi Fairbairn again was making them from beyond 50 yards. Second week in a row, he's done that. And again, this was in less than ideal conditions, a lot of wind and rain. And then Davis Mills finding the end zone twice. Brandon Cooks, his top target, recipient of both those touchdowns. The second one coming with just over 2 minutes to play. It was only a one-score game. You were thinking maybe this is where the Jags get back into it after everything they've gone through over the last week or so, which has been well documented. This was Trevor Lawrence's chance to possibly get the ball back, but facing third and long, the Texans were able to turn a wide receiver screen into a 43-yard score and effectively iced it. So as things stand right now, they are now the number 3 team in terms of where they would pick if the NFL draft started tomorrow. But among the players and coaches who aren't thinking about any of that right now, it was certainly all smiles yesterday after the win. We heard from the team's starting quarterback. Let's hear from David Culley after his team, which was like so many teams in the NFL, injury ravaged, or rather COVID positive ravaged, down 11 players on the COVID list going into the game yesterday. Here's what Coach Culley had to say after his team came away with the win.
Big thing was the focus. I thought our football team focused really, really good, extra focus on what we were doing and not what was happening in Jacksonville, because we know how that's a distraction. They kept hearing it all the time. They kept hearing it, but every time we got in the building, it was just about us.
So obviously Jacksonville had their own issues, but the Texans got the win. And for everybody out there saying, oh no, that was actually a bad thing because now they're no longer in the driver's seat for the number one pick, or they moved further away from the driver's seat, we should say, look, obviously Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau, the two all-everything pass rushers who are expected to be the top 2 picks in the draft in whatever order, obviously those are great players, and if you're the Texans, you'd love to have them, but you'd love to have a whole lot because that's what your roster needs. There's not one position on this roster right now that you look at and go, nope, you don't need to worry about that. You don't need to draft a player who plays that particular position come the NFL draft, whether it's Neal, the offensive lineman out of Alabama, Stingley, the all-everything corner out of LSU. Even if it is a quarterback, I don't know if the Texans or really any team should go hunting too early in the first round for a QB, but it happens every year. One or more teams falls in love with a signal caller. Wherever the Texans end up picking, and it's going to be somewhere in the top 5, they need a whole lot of help. So missing on Thibodeau or Hutchinson potentially doesn't mean that, all right, well, this rebuild is going to take all that much longer now, because the team still needs offensive line help. They still need help in the secondary. They need pass rushers. They need playmakers on the offensive side of the football. And again, everyone around football seems to say that this quarterback class isn't anything close to what we've seen the last couple of years, certainly not last year with Trevor Lawrence, and there doesn't appear to be a can't miss generational type prospect like an Andrew Luck. So missing out on the number 1 pick when you're a team like the Texans that has so much work to do really isn't that big of an issue. And don't forget who is the person whose name is going to be at the very top come NFL draft week, and that's Nick Caserio, who cut his teeth with the Patriots, where they were firm believers in, if the right opportunity is there, it's always better to trade back and accumulate more picks. That's how you build up your roster. That's how you build a 53-man. That's how you build up your depth. And so don't be surprised if the Texans end up sticking at number 3 or picking 4th, wherever the chips may fall once the regular season ends, if they end up deciding to move that pick. And if the Deshaun Watson off the field situation ever gets resolved, and we know that that is slowly happening on the legal side of things, once that plays itself out and it becomes potentially easier to make the trade for DW4, it's expected that the Texans are going to get 1 or more first-round picks in return. So now you're in a position to possibly package picks or use 1 pick at one area of need and then go somewhere else to get another area of need. Because as we said, this team needs a whole heck of a lot right now. So it's not like they were one Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau away from, all right, now you're a playoff team. They still have a lot of questions that they need to answer, and that's where you're going to start actually getting those answers come draft time. And so now it's going to see so much has been put in the hands of Nick Caserio, whether you like it or not as a Texans fan. And so he's going to get his chance at what is going to be an absolutely critical offseason, and he'll get his first true shot at a true draft where the team should have its full complement of draft picks. And this is where we will see, is Nick Caserio just another individual who is a product of the Patriots system, or did being there and getting to be in the same room as a Bill Belichick for years on end, does that lend him some insights and some scouting advantages that would perhaps let the Texans start to accelerate this rebuild process? Because look, say what you want about the organization and the decisions they've made over the last year or so, and there's certainly plenty to nitpick, but a lot of those draft picks that the team made this past draft, when again, they didn't have any first or second round picks, a lot of those rookies are actually making plays and contributing to this team. Now, it's not contributing to them becoming a playoff team right now, but we saw Garrett Wallow, the linebacker, have a good game yesterday. We've seen Roy Lopez, the defensive lineman, have some very good moments out on the field. Obviously, Davis Mills outplayed the number 1 overall pick, Nico Collins, the wide receiver. So if perhaps the Texans are able to find some kind of value and find enough guys to fill in the holes, maybe they're at least taking another step forward before they eventually can start really turning their eyes to who's going to be the franchise quarterback, where are the actual playmakers, who is that new foundation around which you can build a team to make the playoffs and then eventually one day contend for a Super Bowl, which is what the ultimate goal is. So we'll see. We've all been watching the Beatles documentary that came out a couple weeks ago on Disney Plus, and when you watch it, you see that obviously they're all 4 great musicians, but George and Ringo are there. Fine musicians in their own right, and they certainly help contribute to the Beatles being the Beatles. But when you see the actual behind the scenes of what allowed the Beatles to become who they were, the impact they had. It's that John Lennon and Paul McCartney were just on another level. And we've seen that now. There's enough evidence that the Patriot way, which we've heard about for 2 decades, you can say all you want about they have a culture and a way of doing things and a set of standards, but they had Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, who have proven certainly last year and this year with Tampa and what they've been able to do. And now the Patriots right back in the thick of things as AFC contenders to win the AFC and possibly go to the Super Bowl again. So is there really a Patriot way, and is bringing in so many former New England faces, which the Texans have done in recent years, and obviously everyone around the league is littered with guys who were former Bill Belichick assistants or acolytes, but we're starting to see that there's a big difference between, well, you got Lennon and McCartney and, oh, you couldn't get them, but you got Ringo and George Harrison. So there's a difference between Abbey Road and While My Guitar Gently Weeps. It's a great song, but it's not the entire catalog of Lennon and McCartney. So we will start to see as we get closer to the offseason just what Nick Caserio is able to do. Is he's going to end up with a top 5 pick and a whole lot of holes that need to be filled on the Texans roster. All right, let's move along now to the Rockets. I mentioned they are in action up in Chicago. They got off to a very bad start. They fell in a 9-0 hole early on, but they've clawed their way back. It's now 28-22 Bulls with about 2.5 minutes left to go here in the first quarter. So we will have those updates and, of course, the highlights for you tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. But the other big story in the NBA and really throughout the sports world is how COVID has come rearing back and affected every team seemingly. And certainly in the NFL, we saw that. I mentioned the Texans were without 11 players because of COVID yesterday. They placed 3 more starters on the COVID list today. David Culley says they should have a better idea later in the week just how long those guys have to stay in the COVID protocols. But the NBA, we're seeing all kinds of big names being shut down on an almost daily basis. And there are no plans to go into any kind of pause right now to shut things down. I know it's been rumored that a lot of people say, well, let's just stop all the games for 2 weeks, get a chance to flatten the curve or something like that. All indications from the NBA are they are just going to press on. They just changed the rules over the weekend that they're going to allow teams to basically sign emergency players as they start to lose so many of their regular roster spots to the COVID list. And so you're going to see a lot of G Leaguers, a lot of former pros, a lot of former college guys who maybe things didn't work out their first go round trying to make an NBA squad. That's what you're likely to see over the next few weeks until teams slowly start to get through this latest COVID surge and get their rosters back to full strength. That's something that Rockets coach Stephen Silas was asked about before the game, and here's what he had to say about how the whole league right now is dealing with this latest COVID surge.
It's going to be a big part. Hopefully, it is a short-term thing for the teams that are going through it, like a 10-day thing. Unlike injuries, which could be 4 to 6 weeks, and you have to deal with it that way. So it's just another layer on top of injuries, which when you go through them, you have to adjust and figure things out, figure out playing groups, figure out lineups, and recover from those. And then adding this on top of that is makes it tough. But I hope that it won't be a long-term thing. Like for the Bulls, for example, they have so many guys going through it now. Hopefully for them, come February, they'll be through it and it won't be an issue. But I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
So again, that's what you're likely to see over the next week, 2-3 weeks as everybody deals with this latest surge. Coach Silas did say over the weekend that I believe all but one of the Rockets, or it may even be at this point, the entirety of the team has been vaccinated and gotten their booster shots, which seems to help in terms of not testing positive. So keep your eyes on just what the NBA looks like over the next few weeks. One other nugget to pass along from Coach Silas. He did say that the plan is to get the starting backcourt back sooner rather than later. They're hoping that Jalen Green will make his return sometime before Christmas, which is obviously at the end of the week, and then sometime after the Christmas break is when they're hoping that Kevin Porter Jr. will be able to come back from injury. But the Rockets have been playing much better basketball over the last couple weeks, winners of 9 out of their last 13 as they continue their current road trip, down 4 right now, late first quarter, 28-24. So we will have those highlights for you on Fox 26 News at 9. All right, do have to send out a couple of huge congratulations to some local teams who went up to AT&T Stadium this weekend and both in dramatic fashion were able to come out on top in the state football championships. Started Friday night when Katy Paetow went toe-to-toe with College Station, and it was a smash-mouth game at the hands of the Panthers, who were committed to the run and were sticking to it and had to overcome a handful of big plays from College Station, which is how they did most of their damage. But it all ended up going to overtime, and that's where Paetow had to go for it on 4th and short, got it by what was essentially the width of an index card or a credit card. You got remember that game? I think it was Cowboys Raiders, or it was some kind of Cowboys game a few years ago where they were trying to determine if the team got the first down, and the refs actually slid an index card in between the marker and the football. They didn't whip out the card this time, but that's how close it was. But Paetow did get the 4th down conversion in OT. And then on the very next play, Jacob Brown, the senior running back, punched it in as the Panthers, in only their 4th year as a varsity football program, secured the 5A Division I title. So the Katy Tigers, not the only team out on the west side that can call themselves champions. Here's what the Katy Paetow Panthers had to say after winning the school's first football championship.
Man, it's just with their coach. No matter what happens during the game, just stay focused and trust your training. And no matter what happened throughout the game, all the way to the 4th quarter, we trusted our training and it ended up working out for us. Man, it feels amazing. We created a tradition that nobody else really gets a chance to do. And I can't even explain the feeling right now. Man, it was amazing. This was the toughest game I've had all year. Through all the carries I had, it wasn't just easy. It wasn't just running up and down the field. We had to fight quarter after quarter after quarter, and we did it. All 5 quarters, and we made it.
I feel like a lot of people stray away from, just smash mouth football, and, I feel like it's kind of a testament to, running the ball still works. I mean, it worked on the biggest stage there is in Texas football.
I had a vision that eventually we would get to this level, but I never would have thought it'd be this fast. And it's a credit to our kids buying in. It's a credit to our administration allowing us to build it the right way. It's a credit to our coaches for sticking to the plan and continuing to work. I'm so happy for them.
So if that wasn't enough for you on Friday night, on Saturday, for the 3rd time in the last 4 years, the highest class in Texas high school football, 6A Division I, was decided between North Shore and Duncanville. Dallas against Houston. Obviously, we all remember that crazy Hail Mary that won it for the Mustangs in 2018. They then repeated in 2019, and they were back facing Duncanville in 2021, and it did not disappoint. All the best boxing matches have all been trilogies, and we got a great 3rd part of the trilogy between North Shore and Duncanville. It was a defensive slugfest, tied until the final few minutes of regulation, and that's when Caleb Bailey, the freshman quarterback for North Shore, hit David Amador in stride on a perfectly thrown 39-yard pass for what turned out to be the game-winning score for a 17-10 win for North Shore. As though it wasn't already apparent, you can officially use the word dynasty with them now. Not only winning 3 of the last 4 titles, beating Duncanville, but since 2015, it's their 4th title since 2015, 5th title overall, all coming in the last 20 years as John Kay and the kids from East Side have been doing some huge things. Here's what they had to say after winning their latest state championship.
It's a great feeling. You know, me and my brothers came out here and executed the good way, the fast way. You know, we got on their bus right away, and we ain't waste no time. We came ready to play, no cap.
I loved it. This was a great experience. I just acted like I've been playing football. We're playing football. I just love the experience. Hey, on the next year, I love these guys. I love the staff. This for my family. This for my mama. I love you. I did it.
It's not easy to play football at North Shore. It really isn't, and that's why we try to give as much credit to the parents as we can, because you know the sacrifices that they make to make sure that their kids are at that school and doing the work that's necessary to compete at this level. It ain't for everybody. I think there's a great sense of pride, and you know we take a lot of responsibility for making sure that we're putting that at the forefront. The way our kids act, the way that they handle success, the way that they handle adversity, and the way that they move forward in their lives.
We should also point out you heard from Denver Harris after the game, senior corner for the Mustangs. He announced after winning his 3rd state championship in his high school career that as a 5-star prospect, he has signed with Texas A&M, solidifying Jimbo Fisher's top-ranked recruiting class after the initial early signing period this past week in high school football. So congrats to the Mustangs, congrats to the Pado Panthers, and congrats to all the local athletes who signed last week to continue their athletic careers at the next level. Since we are mentioning college football, we do want to point out one interesting nugget from the UH Cougars, who are getting ready next week to take on Auburn in the Birmingham Bowl. It'll be next Tuesday, December 28th, 11 a.m. kick Central Time. You can watch it on ESPN, but UH is going to play that game without its 2 best players. Logan Hall, who's projected to be a first-round pick as a defensive lineman, he announced that he's undergone elbow surgery and has decided to turn pro and get ready for the NFL draft. And then today, Marcus Jones, the consensus All-American kick returner, cornerback, wide receiver, winner of the Paul Hornung Award for best versatile or most versatile player in the entire country. He has decided to go pro and will not be playing in the Birmingham Bowl as he sets his sights on the NFL, where he's projected to obviously garner all kinds of interest given his athleticism and his versatile skill set. So we'll see just what goes on when both the Auburn Tigers and U of H take the field without their full complement of players. Obviously, the big headline in that was Bo Nix, the quarterback at Auburn, who I feel like has been there forever, announced over the weekend that he has committed to the University of Oregon through the transfer portal. So obviously he will not be suiting up under center for Auburn. But again, December 28th, the Birmingham Bowl is when we will get our next look at the UH football team. UH basketball holding steady at 14 in the latest AP poll today. Actually dropped 1 spot in the coaches' rankings despite winning over the weekend against Oklahoma State in Fort Worth. But again, it's still December. Conference play doesn't start until next week for the Cougars men's basketball team. All right, finally, before we get out of here, a special event yesterday afternoon for Astro star Lance Mccullers Jr., who was holding his annual holiday gift drive for partnering with Big Brothers Big Sisters. We also talked to him a little bit about baseball. He said there's nothing new to report on the labor negotiations front. Remember, McCullers is the Astros player rep for the MLB Players Association, but as of right now, there are no new developments on that front. But it was still a special day for Lance and everybody involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters. Our sports director, Mark Berman, was out there. Here's how things went down.
Astros pitcher Lance McCullers Jr. was playing Santa today, making Christmas come early for kids involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters at Classic Chevrolet in Sugar Land. 130 kids got a bag with 3 or 4 toys in it, plus each child got to request one additional big toy, and Lance made sure they got what they wanted. This event is designed specifically for
mostly with kids who are unmatched. So in our program, we match positive mentors with children in the Houston area. But there's about 900 children that are on our waiting list every year. And so this specific event is how we engage children who are on that waiting list, waiting for positive, safe mentors to be matched with.
Lance has been a part of this event since it began 4 years ago, which the first 2 years involved a big party. But it was a drive-through event this year and last because of COVID.
Lance is a salt-of-the-earth guy. I just can't think of a better representative of the Houston Astros than Lance McCullers. I mean, the guy would give the shirt off his back. At every opportunity that he has to spread joy to people, it doesn't have to be December for this guy. I love it, dude.
Today it's all about giving back. It's about giving back in the the holiday season. It's important. At this time in the holidays, people know that people are thinking of them, and they get to have that same joy, and get to have those awesome new gifts and new things to enjoy with the family. So it's really cool to be able to do that.
Lance says they had about 100 toys left over, which are being donated to the Fort Bend Women's Center and the Moses Closet, which helps kids in foster care and families who adopt kids. On the baseball front, Lance is looking forward to begin throwing again next month as he bounces back from that right forearm strain during the ALDS that ended his season.
I'm feeling great, and I really am. I've come a long way the last few weeks. Feeling really, really good, and the plan is the exact same. Start throwing probably about the first week of January. So it's normal, timing for me. It's not anything crazy as far as I'm not delayed too much, things like that. We're just taking a very conservative approach to this. We're going to the very end of the timeline. I feel like I could probably start playing catch and building up right now, but there's no need to. So January it is.
Mark Berman, Fox 26 Sports.
All right, that is going to do it for us here on the latest installment of the Fox 26 Sports Stream. Rockets now down 13, 39-26, 10 minutes to go in the first half. So we will have those highlights for you tonight on Fox 26 News at 9, as well as we'll hear from Kaimi Fairbairn, the Texans kicker, who has actually put together a couple of his best games as a Texan over the last couple weeks, as he connected on 3 field goals yesterday, including yet another one from beyond 50 yards in the Texans win. So all that tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. And of course, as always, for up-to-the-minute sports updates across the entire Houston sports landscape, make sure you are checking in with our sports director, Mark Berman, on Twitter. He is at Mark Berman, Fox 26. For all of us here at Fox 26, I'm Sal Manine. Happy holidays. We'll see you again next week.